Hi, this is Carretero Family.
We are from East Los Angeles, Boyle Heights. You're watching Channel 35, our city, our channel.
Good morning. Today is Tuesday, December 6, 2016. This is the regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioners Johnson, Soboroff, Figueroa Villa, and McLean Hill are present, and we have a quorum. Number one on the agenda.
Do you have any comments on any of the consent item agenda?
We have none, sir.
Do any of my fellow commissioners want any of the consent agenda items pulled?
No, sir.
Great. Can I have a motion to approve items 1A through 1G?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Item number two, regular agenda items.
So there were, and Mr. Teefank, I believe we have an item that's pulled from the regular agenda.
Yes, Mr. President, it will be item
2E.
2E, as in Edward. The department would like to continue until next week due to unavailability of personnel that are responsible for responding to the motion.
Okay, thank you. And then I would like reports on items 2A, 2B, and 2F. Do any of my fellow commissioners want reports on items 2C, 2D, or 2G?
No.
Do we have any comments on those items?
No, sir. We have comments on A and B.
Okay. Then can I have a motion to approve items 2C, 2D, and 2G?
Motion to approve item 2C, D, and G.
Yes. And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to item 2A, please.
2A, discussion and possible board action relative to the after-action steps as a result of the board discussion on November 15, 2016 regarding the prevention and elimination of bias policing.
Thought you'd be up around 11:30, and now it's only 9:35.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Absolutely.
Well, first, thank you all very much for being here today. Commissioner Johnson, may I?
Of course.
Thank you. I would like to had some time to both review the discussion that we had at the previous meeting, and upon retrospect, there were some items missing, some items that I was interested in follow-up on. Before I get started, though, with my follow-up questions, was there anything that anyone at the table wanted to provide? No? Okay, great.
Have you had any follow-up questions from any of us since that meeting? Okay,
No.
so this is the first time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So thanks. A couple of things. I appreciate the rigor associated with the report that was prepared. However, I am interested still in some specifics around the implicit bias training that is ongoing in the department. Specifically, I would appreciate, and certainly not for today, since to Commissioner Soboroff's point, you're kind of getting hit with this a little blind. I would appreciate at a date to be determined a report back on the current status of the training. I think it's being done as a train-the-trainer program. I'd like to know how the implicit bias training is rolling out, who's received that training, what the schedule for the training is, who's doing the training, and when we expect that the department, what the plan is with respect to rolling that out across the department. In addition, I'm interested in a report back on the Office of Constitutional Policing in the FID, just the status of that office and what what their current role is in investigating bias complaints. And then finally, I would like, at the top of the meeting, Commissioner Johnson made reference to an app that was prepared by the Inspector General, as I recall. I'd like a report and a demonstration of that app to the extent that it can play a role in the complaint process, and frankly can play a role in just feedback in general. As I understand it, it is available to the public to facilitate reports of any kind, positive or negative. It would be useful to see, though, a demonstration of that app, since I've heard about it but not seen it. Are there any questions about any of the report back?
Madam Commissioner, I believe that you're looking for a report on the Constitutional Policing Unit, which is in Internal Affairs Group.
Sorry, Internal Affairs.
Yes,
Yes.
so.
Any questions about any of that?
No, I think we understand. We need to get.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have another question, or not a question, but a comment to make regarding the Inspector General's office. If if I may, I simply want to say that history has taught us of the importance of civilian oversight over law enforcement, and that the Office of the Inspector General is critical to the Police Commission's ability to effectively discharge its responsibilities in this regard. I feel compelled today to say that in my time on the Commission, I've observed that Alex Bustamante is an exceptional Inspector General whose ethical standards are beyond reproach. He and his office provide an invaluable service to this Commission and, by extension, the citizens of Los Angeles. I'm deeply concerned by reports that, if accurate, point to a nefarious effort to cast doubt on Mr. Bustamante's judgment and credibility. These unsettling activities, while directed at the Inspector General, are nothing short of an outright assault on the very core of the Commission's oversight role and work on behalf of the people of Los Angeles. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add with respect to this item? No. We're good. Okay. All right. So when do you have a suggested time frame to come back to us with these reports?
Okay. Just for clarification, do you want a written report or a verbal in front on our FIP, what the game plan and everything is? How would you?
Is it possible to have a written report by the 20th of December?
I think most of it is contained in that original bias placement. Might be inaccurate in that, Luann?
Would it be better for the app presentation to be done by the Inspector General?
Absolutely, yes.
Right.
Oh, yes, the app presentation, absolutely, by the Inspector General. Thank you. But the other two?
Yeah, I think that would be it.
Yeah, we could do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
then December 20th would be great, and written.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you again, and I don't think we did enough during the first report to acknowledge the resources and the time and energy you put into doing a very detailed, well-done report. And I think that for all, I don't know who, you know, you're the front line of this, but there were a lot of people involved in that, and I think that that deserves acknowledgement. That took off.
Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge Commander Jeff Burt. He was the person who put it all together. He did a great job on that.
Thank you very much. It was very much appreciated.
Thank you, Commander Byrd.
Thanks.
Okay, we do have the 7 comment cards. We have Andre Cherry, Pastor Q, Jan Marie, and Jamie Garcia.
I would like to say that since sitting here, y'all are like thanking each other right now. And I don't see how that's being done. There are people dying, right? And that's what this report is about, people being killed based on the color of their skin. And you guys are congratulating each other as, you know, more and more black and brown people are being killed on the streets. And that's what this whole thing is about. And I haven't heard that. Why aren't you guys talking about that? People are being killed based on this so-called bias policing, racial profiling. People are being killed because of that. And instead of talking about that, and instead of bringing that up, and instead of mentioning that at any time, just you guys are talking about bias policing, but you guys aren't mentioning the fact that that your police officers are killing black and brown kids unarmed, without any consequence, without any thing happening, and you're congratulating these people? You're congratulating these people? These people are killing our fucking kids. This is serious. This is really serious. People are dying, and you guys are, good job, good fucking job, good job. There's nothing you should be proud of. You should be disappointed in yourself. Every single one of you should be disappointed in yourself and the way that this is being run, and the way that you are running your fucking department. You should be disappointed. You shouldn't be congratulating yourself. That is sickening. That is sickening. You are killing people. This company is killing people. And you guys are, good job, man. Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind to congratulate these people as they kill and slaughter? Just like Thanksgiving, you guys are giving thanks to the brutalization of people. It's the same shit over and over again. You are thanking each other and priding each other on the ability to kill our people. And there's no reforming that. There's no fixing it. Get the fuck out of our communities.
Good morning.
Good morning. Pastor Q from the Church Without Walls, Skid Row, Black Jewish Justice Alliance. This is how bias policing / racial profiling works in our community. The district attorney says the video cam shows that Charlie Africa was gaining control of the officer's gun. The community's video, which has been viewed over 50,000 times, does not show that. Jeff Charlotte came from across the country to report this story for GQ magazine. On my Facebook page, he tagged me and expressed his outrage because he felt like the LA Times lied about this thing, saying that the media was allowed to see the video cam and you can't make that determination based on what they saw. To us, that shows bias. Now, the fact that LAPD will not release the footage to the public proves why we oppose paying $57 million for body cams. With the history of this department, should we trust the LAPD? Now, my Bible tells me that the letter of the law kills. If that's the case, criminalization is killing us. Once police became an occupying force in our communities, the slippery slope from hyper law to execution began. Here's an example. Look at the case of Walter Scott in South Carolina. The officer said, "I fired until the threat was stopped," like I'm trained to do. So to law enforcement, a black man running away is a threat. To our society as a whole, a black man running away deserves execution. A black man running away is a threat? That means if he's a threat while he's running away, every black man in our community is a threat.
Jamie Garcia, followed by Tiffany Guerra and Michael Novick.
So I want to start with just saying that we need to be calling this what it is, and it's racial profiling. We don't need to gloss over it. We don't need to be calling it bias policing because it was called racial profiling. So let's just get that part cleared. So I want to show how programmatically we see continued examples of racial profiling through the LAPD. Program after program is showing this issue. So that kind of shows the impact of a cultural, social, and structural history of policing. So culturally, we know how racist America was. Socially, we see how it was played out. Structurally, we see how policing has had this history. So again, let's call it racial profiling because that's the history of LAPD. So I wanted to talk a little bit of how this racial profiling affects other programs. So we know that people of color are stopped, frisked, detained, and arrested disproportionately. That's a fact that's been proven. So therefore, this will be reflected in historic crime data. So when we look at predictive policing, we want to see how is this going to impact predictive policing. So if this historic crime data is put into an algorithm and it produces where these hotspots of where police should go, we know that police will be sent back to the communities that they always police. They'll be sent to black and brown communities. So being in the hotspot will be exactly just a reason, will raise suspicion that you are up to something, that you may be doing something criminal. So when we see that, we see how racial profiling will intersect with that. So essentially being in that hotspot will again perpetuate racial profiling. It'll create a feedback loop of injustice where people just essentially being in that hotspot, being black or brown, will essentially make police officers want to stop you, want to detain you, want to frisk you, want to arrest you. So I think that what we need to do is, again, look at programmatically how LAPD has continually shown racial profiling. Again, look at how this is going to perpetuate these technological advances, and it's going to create this feedback loop of injustice. So this is a very serious issue, and again, let's call it racial profiling because that's what it is.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so I wanted to touch on the idea that what's the most discouraging about this whole thing is that we talk about changes in policy, and I'm talking about now about the bias policing, which is what I'm speaking on, but we talk about changes in policy, but when you make changes in policy, we don't see that that affects the behavior of police and outcomes in the streets, and that's why it feels very discouraging and an incredible waste of time, and it feels like you all are feeding into that and a part of that and complicit in it. Recently, we had a change of policy with the use of force, or it was maybe clarified, the definition of it, and it was expressed that police officers are to exhaust every other possible, that they were to take every chance to de-escalate a situation before resorting to lethal force. Then just this week, we had another person shot and killed by LAPD. This was Pablo Cartagena. He was 23 years old. We have yet to hear or understand how the officers on the scene attempted to de-escalate. We're looking forward to hearing about that in detail, to hearing about how they exhausted every possibility to de-escalate. We also understand that this is not a new policy, that this is something that it wasn't defined as such until recently, that they were to exhaust every possibility, but that it was very much communicated and that was expressed and that the officers understood that. But then if you look at the Charlie Africa video, I don't know if all of you have seen it. You probably have. I would hope that you have. It is available on YouTube. You will see the way he was surrounded by police. This is one houseless person on the street. He's got 5 officers around him. So one way to de-escalate that you could think of right away would be to have fewer police around him. That's an obvious way to de-escalate. They are not doing that. That man ended up being shot dead on the ground like he was nothing. You're changing policies, but it doesn't make a difference to the people on the street. and that needs to change.
Michael Novick, followed by Mariela Saba and Hamid Khan.
Yeah, if you don't define the problem correctly, then you're not going to find the solution. If you call the problem bias policing, you're saying it's a problem of individual officers and what's going on inside their heads and their, implicit bias. And the problem is not the individual officers. The problem is the system. There's an aphorism that says that the law in its majesty prohibits the rich and the poor alike from sleeping under bridges. So if the police are out there enforcing the law against sleeping under bridges, obviously the only people they're going to arrest are poor people. And the people they kill are going to be poor and black people. And so that's a systemic problem. It's not the problem of individual officers' bias, implicit or otherwise. If you define the solution as constitutional policing, you're not dealing with the fact that the Constitution of this country enforces a system of white supremacy. We just saw it played out in this election. What was the Electoral College about? The Electoral College was created because when they set up the election system for President of the United States, the number of voters had no relationship to the number of electoral votes, because the South was given votes for 3/5 of the population of slaves they held who had no right to vote. And so they were given the power to name the President of the United States by dividing the vote by states electorally. And so if your solution to bias policing is constitutional policing, you're not identifying the problem correctly. The problem is systemic racism, white supremacy, and a system of exploitation that the police enforce. And until you change that, you're not going to be able to solve the problem that people are talking about here today, which is the people being killed in the streets of the city because the police are enforcing a system of white supremacy.
It's morning, and we still haven't woken up. Wake up. You are asleep in the lies. You are asleep in the language of implicit bias. You are asleep in superficial commending each other, fluffing our egos. We come from the depth, from truth, from Dante naming. People are dying by murder, by the force that you help uphold and enforce, and call each other exceptional, pat each other on the back because you're on the same force, the same bed of lies. It's our bodies on the line. It's our skin on the line in the street as we run or we walk. Brother Africa, de Cameroon, a migrant brother in the streets with so many of our relatives in the streets, right here down the block, the ones that you force, the ones that you push, the ones that you pull out of tents and kill. That's who is here. That's the truth. That's the depth that we bring to this superficial fantasy that has to stop, that we bring down to stop, because it's our lives on the line in the streets. Of course, within policy, it's within policy to kill. That's the story of this department. That's the truth, the false truth that is being upheld here. But you can't kill Africa.
Hamid Khan.
So when we talk about this body as the shock absorbers of the system, Cynthia McLean Hill, I mean, I think we saw an example of how that unfolds. A key piece that came up on November 15th was the issue of perception versus reality. And looking at this institution, which thrives in a culture of denial, you talk about implicit bias training. You invited an expert to your hearing, Professor Richardson, who very clearly stated through science, through social science, and various other, through criminological theories, that it is not about a bad apple. It is not about training your way out of implicit bias. It's not about diversity. It is inherent and it's weaved within the institution. You have to have an other to enforce. You have to have a threat. So racial profiling and racism is inherent in this system. You can't train your way out of this thing. It is not possible. Then you speak about constitutional policing. I believe you're a lawyer. Observed behavior reasonably indicative of pre-operational planning of terrorist and or criminal activity. Is that constitutional policing? Observed behavior reasonably indicative of pre-operational planning? Or is it speculative policing? How can you ask for constitutional policing when within your system suspicious activity is defined like that, that throws the Constitution out the window? Jamie Garcia spoke about predictive policing. You need to have an other to enforce these policies. And then you praise a man who denies the findings in his own reports. When there's over 30% of SARS going to fusion centers identifying individuals as black in a 9.2% or 6% population in the city of Los Angeles, a 3-to-1 disparate impact, 50% of women are identified as black women in those reports, and he's saying, no, there is no racial profiling. He's denying his own findings.
Thank you, Mr.
And that's
Khan.
why we are here, because you killed Africa. And you can't kill Africa. You can't kill Africa. Can't kill Africa. Can't kill Africa. Can't kill Africa. Can't kill Africa.
Mr.
Can't
Khan,
kill
can you please have a
Africa.
seat?
Can't kill Africa. 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 Can't kill Africa.
Mr. Khan, please have a seat. Can everyone have a seat, please, so we can move on to the next agenda item? Mr. Khan, if you don't have a seat, I'm going to ask you to leave. Mr. Khan, that's your last warning. Mr. Khan, please leave the room. I'm going to need all of the people standing to sit down, please. I'm going to ask all the people standing to please have a seat. It's the last warning. If you don't have a seat, I'm going to ask you to leave. Everyone standing, the gentleman here in the sweatshirt that says champions, the green jacket, the burgundy sweater.
That's why they need to do it.
We need everybody standing to please leave the room.
Killing Africa is killing
Okay, thank you. Let's move to item 2B, please.
Item 2B, Department's verbal presentation and discussion relative to the status of the current staffing of positions to facilitate reality-based training in the Police Training and Science Bureau and all training coordinator and assistant training coordinator positions as recommended in the Office of the Inspector General's comparative review of selected agencies, policies, investigations, and training on the use of force, dated October 16, 2016.
Good morning. I'm Bill Murphy, Commanding Officer of Police Sciences and Training Bureau.
Good morning. Captain Vic Davalos, Training Division.
Commander John Sherman, Office of Operations.
Okay. I'll be reporting on the vacant positions for Training Division and then Police Training and Education. I'll begin with Training Division. Currently, we have 12 vacant positions. 7 will be filled effective December 25th, 2016. Of the remaining 5 vacancies, 2 are for supervisors and the other 3 are for officers. For the 2 supervisors, we are collecting applications for one of those positions. The other position...
Are they sergeants?
Yes. The other position just became vacant last week due to a promotion, so we requested to advertise that position. For the remaining 3 officer vacancies, we'll be conducting interviews next week for one of those positions, and we're actively recruiting for the other 2 positions. For police training and education...
I'm sorry, just
Yes, sir.
just to get some context to those
Yes,
numbers.
sir.
That's right now there's 12 vacancies out of how many positions?
I believe that number is 359.
Thank you.
Okay. For police training education now, there's 1 vacant supervisor position, and interviews are being scheduled for that position. I can now speak to the area training coordinator vacancies. Currently, all of the area training coordinator positions are filled. As for the assistant training coordinator positions, there are currently 3 vacancies, and those are spread out through 2 bureaus. All the other positions are filled.
Great.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
So it seems like we're on our way to having the training COD, because I was under the impression several months ago that we had far more vacancies than that.
There's been a push to fill these vacancies.
That's good news. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. President, if I may, the report that is referenced in the agenda item from the Inspector General dated October 16, 2016, the report today is responsive to recommendations 5 and 6 from that report. Both of those recommendations had the department coming back every 45 days until the vacancies were filled.
Okay.
So that's why it's before you today. So if you'd like them to report back in 45 days from now to give you an update, we'll schedule at that time.
Sure. But if you want to put it in writing, then we don't have to.
Very good.
If that information had been in writing, then we could have probably disposed with it.
We could
Yes,
do
sir,
that.
President.
Yeah, do a quick recap of it.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
We do have one comment card, Michael Novick, and he's not present.
Great, that brings us to item 2. Oh wait, is
Number
there
3.
an
Item
action on this? Yeah, so I guess,
Accept the department's report, it'll be fine.
yeah.
I'll move we accept the department's report.
But, all in favor? Any opposed? Great, thank you. So that brings us to item 2F, correct?
Correct. 2F, Department's report dated November 30th, 2016, relative to the memorandum of agreement between the California Police Athletic Federation and the Los Angeles Police Department.
Okay, Bill Murphy, Commanding Officer of Police Sciences and Training Bureau. What I'd like to do, with your permission, is to give you a quick overview of the World Police and Fire Games. I'm not sure if you know too much about it. I could do that. The actual MOA is pretty simple. that the World Police and Fire Games Foundation is going to pay for all of the costs. They're going to sign all of the contracts, so the money end is on them. The management end will be on us. But let me spend about 5 minutes. I'll recap this and get a good idea of what this is. Okay, first of all, World Police and Fire Games has been around for about 50 years, the organization. This would be the 17th World Police and Fire Games. They're held every 2 years. So this would be the 17th one. Organization is made up mostly of retired LAPD and sheriffs, who have been involved in sports for a long, long time. It would be about 10,000 athletes. So these are firefighters and police officers from all over the world. Virginia had about 65 different countries. Brazil and Argentina and wherever, France, they all will come to this. And they bring people with them, usually about 15,000 in family and friends. And we're projecting about 63 sports. Now, in these sports, there are some very, very competitive sports, like basketball or ice hockey. The chief may be in motocross, hopefully, if he recovers. But there's also fun sports, to be honest. There are sports like dodgeball and cornhole. I've never heard of cornhole before, but you throw a little beanbag, and it's a competition, put everybody about 75 or 100 feet away. So look forward to putting these sports on. What some of the goals of this would be to have an outstanding games, to showcase Los Angeles, especially downtown. I'll get into clusters in a minute, but there are certain areas where we're putting a lot of sports because they have the venues, and it would be good for us to broadcast it. Also, we want to engage the local community, and there'll be legacy involved. What legacy means is we'll probably spend over $100,000 on equipment. So when that equipment is done, other ones like Virginia or Vancouver may sell that. We're not going to sell that. What we're going to do is give it to Recs and Parks so that the kids in our neighborhoods and our neighborhood parks will get new equipment. We're going to end up giving them a bunch of that. This is a joint effort. It's between LAPD, LAFD, the fire department, and the sheriffs. So we have everybody on board. Going back about 4.5 months ago, Chief Beck called me up, and I skipped over one thing real quickly. I don't have the time to get heavily involved in it, but why we're doing it. These games were awarded 5 or 6 years ago to Montreal, the city. Unfortunately, in the city of Montreal, the firefighters there had a dispute with the city over pension reform, where, well, there's no way to say it, they got really upset and destroyed City Hall. 42 of them got arrested, so they canceled the games on them. It was embarrassment to not only the city of Montreal, I think, but the whole country of Canada. They came to us and asked us if we could do a rescue mission because we were a little over 1 year out. Chief Beck, along with Chief Terrazas and Sheriff McDonald, all agreed that we would step in and rescue these games, basically, is what we're doing, rescuing the games so we could have the 17th consecutive games. For about 4.5 months, we have done a feasibility study. First off, we had to know if we could even find the venues to put basketball on and volleyball and all the sports involved. We've worked very, very hard. I had a team of about 8 people that worked for me. We went to USC for the Coliseum for the opening ceremony. We got agreements from colleges for track and field. It was a lot of hard work, but we know we can pull the games off and we can put them on a presentation. Now, the scope of these games are real big, 10,000 plus athletes. That puts us on par with the Olympics. In fact, the Rio Olympics was a little over 11,000 athletes. London was like 10,500. So when we're talking about 10,000 plus athletes, we're really talking about putting on games at that level. It will be a lot of work, a lot of exposure for the city. There'll be a lot of media involved in this. And there is tremendous economic impact. Because we came into this late, we did not have the ability or the money to do an economic impact study. But all the previous games, that was a requirement for the bid process. So for example, 2 years ago was in Virginia. They did an economic impact study and determined that the games coming to Virginia had an $83 million impact between direct and indirect cost. And that's what people coming in, getting hotel rooms and spending money on drinks and entertainment and all that stuff. So Vancouver was 100 million. So while we didn't do a study, we certainly expect tens of millions of dollars of economic impact to come into the city. What we're going to do on this in the organization, going back to the clusters, there'll be several big clusters. The number one cluster that we want to broadcast out would be for the convention center. That was the first deal we went after. With the convention center, we can put 26 different sports down there. We can put basketball and volleyball and weightlifting down there. We also can get Chickern Drive. That's the street right in front of Staples Center. The reason we want to take that, quite frankly, is that some of those fun sports we could put out there. We could put the dodgeball or maybe boxing. The firefighters have this thing called muster, where they run around with cans of water and make a relay race at a speed and try to put out a fire, I guess. I've never seen it personally, but it looks like it would be an exciting type of fun event to see.
Hope it works.
Yeah, I hope so too. And so it's going to be really good. The other big kind of cluster point for us would be the San Fernando Valley. We're projecting about 5,000 athletes out there. They have some big sports complex, Balboa, where we could do soccer and a bunch of like sports, flag football. Then others are like in the west side. Some would be around like Hollywood. Most of the sports would be in the city of LA, but as you can understand, putting on 63 different sports, we don't have all of the facilities within the city, so we have to go outside of them. So Castaic, the sheriffs, that's why we have the sheriffs heavily involved. They're a partner on this. We're going to do some sports up there, and certain sports like archery. We already have Olympic level archery, but they're not in the city. So that drove how we picked most of these venues, is where we could go to put the athletes and so on. So look, we're very excited about this. We think we'll shine a great light on Los Angeles. We're committed to this. We've been working extremely hard. Up at Elysian Park, we have the whole operations already set up. If you go up there and you'd see there are several rooms where we have an ops center. We have all our meetings up there. The World Police and Fire Games are basically our partners on this. So in costing for us, it's going to cost us on the LAPD about 11 sworn officers. Well, 1 civilian and 10 sworn. That's a captain, a lieutenant, sergeant, and mostly police officers to organize and plan this. We have 2 firefighters involved. One's a battalion chief, and one is a fire captain. And on the sheriff's side, outside of us, 2 sheriffs are involved. The entire World Police and Fire Games staff, about 10 or so people are involved. And we are doing recruiting for interns. Right now we have feelers out to probably about 8 or 10 different colleges, seeing if we can get some interns in who might want to learn. This would be a great opportunity, especially down the road if they get the Olympics at 2024. We could train some of these young men and women to assume that type of role. So that's a quick recap of it. The MOA is basically would codify that we are not signing any contracts, we're not raising the money, we're not touching any of the money. We are simply bringing our expertise to plan, organize, and run games, just like we do all the time. We do this quite frequently in ICS, Incident Command System. So we're like the managers of the game. The money's on the World Police and Fire Games side.
So other than the personnel, which are 11 sworn officers, there's no other cost to the department? Or the city?
There would be some other costs where we got space from, it's really LAPRAC space, which is our fitness, basically, organization for the LAPD. They gave up space. That's where we're sitting there. There could be some minor cost on like putting phone lines in there and stuff like that. But for the most part, for the LAPD, it would be the cost of the salaries. Now, we do have on the side there, and this is a request to the city, there's a request to waive fees. That would be like the convention center fees. To get the south hall of the convention center is like $348,000, so we're asking the city to waive that. So in fees for the city, it's roughly like $600,000, I believe. So, but that's not cost on us. That would be the city would waive that. With that, I'm open to any questions you have.
Just, can you, the personnel costs would be over what period of time? I may have missed it.
It'd be beginning on now, actually, and going backwards probably a month or two, because there would be some planning costs involved. There would be that one in, for the city, the one in 12, I think. So you get a captain, a battalion chief, and then you get a lieutenant. I can read all the names, but those are the planners. They're working like right now, organizing this. That would be the cost of those salaries. The only other cost, again, would be the fees. We're asking for some fee waivers for the convention center. We will need some permits. That Chirkhern, the street there, that's a cost to shut the street down.
But back to the personnel
yeah.
cost. So you indicated up to 11.
There is, there's 2 firefighters and 11 LAPD.
And I'm interested primarily in LAPD. So with respect to those 11 officers, over what period of time would they be assigned to this activity? And at what dollar cost?
They would be assigned full-time. Now, the cost right now, the CLA is doing the final costing. We went before the city council about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they agreed to host. It was a 2-part motion. The first part they agreed to host these games, but the second part was contingent upon coming back and them doing a final review of the cost. So CLA right now is costing those 13 people, and we'll eventually go back before the city council, and they would agree to approve the in-kind for those 13 staff people, as well as the waiver of the fees. All of that is in that report.
And so do you know what the cost for
Yeah, it's roughly, and we're projecting it out using CAO type figures, and it'll be a little under, I think, $6 million, like $5.8 million is what we believe it will be. And that also includes the cost of protecting the venues later. So it's the team of these planners, the 13 planners, but obviously when we get to the games, there'll be officers assigned to the opening, the closing ceremonies, the basketball, and so on. We've projected that out too and gave it to them. So all that cost together, I think, is around $5.8 million, what we believe it will be, but absolutely CLA will cost it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is there an organizing committee for this? I'm not talking about us. I mean, we're not putting on the games. There's just like we have an organizing committee for the Olympic Games.
Yeah, there'll be an executive committee. Normally, if we had 6 years and won the bid process, I mean, there'd be all kinds of that. It'd be a board of directors. They would normally hire somebody at an exorbitant salary. There'd be the CEO. But we're not going to be able to do that. But we do have an executive committee. Right now, I am the representative for LAPD. There is a 3-star sheriff, basically their under sheriff, that's going to be the representative for the sheriff's department. And Chief Terrazas is going to name someone to be the executive.
Where are the sources for the $15 or $17 million that the overall games are going to cost?
We have hired it won't be 15 or 17 million.
I'm not talking about our cost.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the overall cost of the games.
When we were, at one point it was going to be on us to raise all the money and pay all the bills. And so we believe we could probably do this about $3 to maybe $3.5 million max. And even at the $3 million, we could do a little bit of cutting. And what drives that mostly is the venues. We can get some breaks on the venues, but we're going to have to pay for them. I mean, they're not going to give them free to us, so we'll go into negotiations. We already have all of the venues for the 63 sports. We have agreements, we have invoices, in some cases a contract to sign, but we're not signing, and again, we're not signing it, but the World Police and Fire Games are not going to sign that until the final hurdle of the city council is approved, the final costing.
What you're saying is that the incremental cost of the department, the council is going to allocate additional funds, so
I think
coming out of our budget.
No, we're not going to allocate. We're going to do this just on in-kind on our positions.
I see.
That's it. So the cost, say if additional money was needed, then the World Police and Fire Games is going to have to raise that. We will certainly help them. One of the agreements that Chief Beck, before we decided to do this, is that they had to hire a professional, what they call corporate development person. That's a fundraiser. So that they do have in the World Police and Fire Games, they have a professional who's been involved in Olympics and Final Fours and raised money for events like that in the past. So he's already out there hard at work trying to raise money for World Police and Fire.
Yeah, okay. One other comment. This is happening about a week and a half before the Olympic group will decide if we win or lose.
Yep.
If it gets screwed up, it could have a huge impact on our losing the Olympic Games for 2024.
That's why we intend not to screw it up.
Oh, I understand the intention, but the ramifications of this are really, really big, and it's really important to do it right. And I hope that to get this outside funding, I hope this guy, I mean, we did a great job for Special Olympics, and they did a great job in raising their money. And I think that this will work out as well. It's just that there's a lot of
yeah, and I'm
we
very
gotta do this
confident
right.
we'll work it out. In essence, it's putting on 63 tournaments. If you want to look at it, a basketball tournament, a baseball tournament. We're extremely confident. We have plenty of people in the LAPD, the sheriffs, the fire department, as well as all of the county law enforcement and fire. They'll step up to the plate and help us put these tournaments on. Really, the raising the money, what we hope to do is raise more money so we have a better opening ceremony or a better closing ceremony and things like that. We're very confident we could put a basketball tournament on or a baseball tournament.
Whether or not it's good for LA, it's great for LA. It's great for our economy, it's great for the hotels, it's great for transportation, for food, for all these kinds of things.
And we've had tremendous support. I can't tell you how many meetings I've had. I've given this pitch 100 times in the last 4 months, and they're all behind it. The commerce, the businesses, our other partners and city government, they're behind it. We couldn't do it without Rex and Parks and other city entities. It wouldn't happen.
And just as some background, obviously we didn't go into this without talking to the mayor's office, without talking to the council president, without talking to the CAO, and making sure that the entire city family would be on board with this, because I am also worried, as Commissioner Soboroff indicated, about how if this could possibly negatively impact the city's bid for the Olympic Games. But I think it will be the opposite. I think it will positively impact us. I've competed in these games for decades now, and they are hugely positive events. I mean, literally, athletes from Mongolia and China and all over Europe and a huge contingent from Germany and Australia who plan their whole family vacations around this. I mean, the Germans come for 3 weeks, and then they bring, dozens and dozens of family members, and so it really is positive. It's a good thing. It's a good time for law enforcement. It's good. The timing is good, I think, for a positive event, and we look forward to it. It was too bad that it fell through for Montreal, and that's kind of a tragic thing. But I think it will work out good for the city of Los Angeles.
Great.
And just on another note, we just completed the Special Olympics. Similar planning, similar number of sports, similar commitment of resources. Not that much different, except for actually the police and fire games are a little easier because the logistics of lodging and transportation we leave on the competitors rather than
yeah.
I'm sorry. When you say a similar commitment of resources, could you explain that? Because I'm just trying to.
We had long-term planning.
Yeah, we had in the Special Olympics, we put together a planning team too, and they worked with the Special Olympics. Now there are some things very similar as to the. We're going to duplicate some of their sports venues, so that already saves us time. We kind of know what their plan was.
And how many officers were dedicated to that planning process?
That was about 7 or 8, I think, total in that one. Yeah. But they had money. The Special Olympics raised had $100 million.
You know, they through their Special Olympics bank, they were able to hire multiple different civilian people to put on the sport. So this, unfortunately, we don't have that luxury here. So we'll have to use more.
But they had medical and they had supervision issues of the athletes that you don't have with.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They had to do 100% transportation. Remember who they are.
So I think this is I'm all for international competition and sports for a variety of reasons and on a variety of levels. What I'm trying to understand really is both the decision-making process as it relates to personnel, because staff is not free.
Yep.
Even though we may, not assign a dollar amount, staff is not free. And also as it relates to deployment. So I'm interested in where, and I'm just interested in how we pull together 13 officers, all sworn, and then what that cost. And I just want to be mindful that we recognize that that is in fact what is occurring, that reflects a certain level of priority around this particular event. And that's really what's important to me to be crystal clear on. And I assume that that is not reimbursed in our budget in any way, shape, or form.
No,
that is a cost that we are
comes out of our budget, and that's why we had discussions with the CAO. That's why the CLA is doing the impact study for the council. That's why we got the mayor's buy-in before we started on this path.
Yeah, the mayor has assigned
I'm very
personnel
happy
to the.
to know that the mayor
planning.
supports this, and thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it. And any other questions or
Any other questions?
We do have 2 comment cards. We have Ted Hayes and Prentice Jenkins.
Peace movement, hippies.
Morning.
Hello. Peace movement, hippies and things like that. There was a demonstration against the war, and one of the flower children had a flower, and as she was walking past an officer, she touched him with the flower on his chest. She was arrested and charged and found guilty of battery on an officer. Some time ago, I guess about 3 meetings ago, I objected to wrestling. Wrestling is a totally contact sport, and it's violent. But the police department wants to teach children how to wrestle, how to body slam, put somebody down, take a grown man, 200 pounds, put him down also. Why would the police department want to teach at-risk children how to wrestle? What's the point in that? Except to make them more capable of some kind of violence and a contact sport. I don't know why the department can actually put this before your commissioners and expect them to approve that as to how you're going to relate to our children. I don't understand that. I don't appreciate it, and so you object to it. But if a flower on the chest of an officer is a battery, what is throwing someone to the ground, a body slam, without benefits of any pads? What's that? So the Athletic Foundation has to analyze itself as to what they're going to be doing when they contact our children in the neighborhood on a daily basis. The police department meets at my library every month, meets at other libraries every month. To garner a better appreciation of police, I have no idea, but I shall certainly be at the next meeting.
Prentice Jenkins.
Prentice Jenkins.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, President Johnson, Vice President Soboroff. Chief, good to see you. I actually did this before in 1982, back in Kansas City, Missouri. We had police officers that guarded the restaurant that I worked at, and all of the employees, which were mostly black, some white, Latino. We were all skeptical of the cops until one day, one of the cops came and sat over where we eat. We ate in the diner, and he sat down and said, "Can I eat here?" We said, "Well, what the hell? Yeah, it's a free country." And we started talking, and guess what? Guy had a lot in common. We started one of these, a basketball tournament. He asked me, "Can you get a basketball team together?" I said, "Well, I'm black, so yeah, I can get a lot of them together." We got a basketball team together, drove out to the white suburbs, never seen a gym that great. It's a beautiful gym. And when we walked in, it bottlenecked as we walked in the door. And as I pushed my way through, there was a black guy who was keeping score, and he wrote the words "nigs" and "pigs." And I realized everybody was standing there not knowing what to say. And when I saw it, I cracked up laughing. And then everybody else started laughing. And I told him, he was about to erase it. I said, "Don't erase it. I want you to keep that up there because that's going to remind us of what we thought about each other." And you won't believe how successful this program was. And that was just people in a restaurant doing it. Chief, I'm in absolute support of this because this will absolutely change the dynamic between people in the community and police. But I'm like my colleague, Mr. Soboroff, right here. Don't drop the baby.
We have no other comment cards, sir.
Do I have a motion to approve the department's report?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
We're on item number 3, report of the Chief of Police, Chief Beck.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
First, I wanted to be absolutely clear that the Los Angeles Police Department and me personally support civilian oversight. We believe in the Police Commission, believe in the Inspector General. You know, as a young lieutenant, I acted as the Police Commission's Inspector General before the formation of the office. I've known every Inspector General since Kathy Mader. You know, I believe that it is an integral piece of what builds the public's trust in policing. And so, you know, no matter what you read and where you read it, anybody that believes different about me or about this organization is wrong. A couple of things of note that have happened. Obviously, yesterday's events. Early yesterday, we received information through the FBI about a specific and imminent threat to the Red Line station of Metrolink at Universal City Walk. Because of that threat, we have deployed resources there. We've worked in unified command with the sheriff and with the FBI and with the Highway Patrol to assure that the public is safe. I was there this morning. Mayor Garcetti was there this morning. The mayor actually rode on the Red Line, as you probably heard. You know, absolutely no issues. You know, parking is a little tough because of the media, but other than that, absolutely no issues. You know, we don't take lightly our obligation to warn the public. You know, you look at in counterterrorism, you look at 3 things. You look at whether a threat is credible, whether it is specific, and whether or not it's imminent. And if those 3 things are met, then you certainly have an obligation to warn. In this case, 2 of the 3, that it was specific and imminent, were met. Credibility is still being vetted out, but we got the threat so late that we were unable to get to the level we would like to. So right now, our partners in the originating country are working to establish the credibility or corroborate this threat, and we're working through the FBI to learn that. So things are going well at this point. We'll continue to have additional resources on mass transit, not only in and around Universal City, but also on the entire system. Also last night, Officers Cerrito and Tudor, who have been running in full uniform and gear from Los Angeles to steps of Sacramento, completed their journey, 420 miles in boots, and Sam Brown with full equipment. They don't even cheat and take things out of the equipment belt like the chief does when it's bad hip. but a really incredible feat, and for to raise not only recognition but to raise funds to remember the police officers slain in the line of duty, and all of us are so impacted why when that happens, as has happened much too frequently of late. But Officer Cerrito and Tudor decided to do something about it. So, I'm very, very proud of them.
Did they get a blister count or ingrown toenail
And
count?
I can't even imagine what's going on. I'm quite, Officer Tudor, obviously has run the LA Marathon in uniform twice, I think. And she came to me originally with this idea, but she wanted to run to the police memorial in D.C.
From here?
From here. And so I said, Christina, can we get something a little more scalable? And so I suggested Sacramento, and she went along with that. So, just shows a great heart, and the organization was very supportive. We had a number of cops on their own time that went up and ran different portions of the route with them, and they were met on the way up, and so it's not only a good story, but it's a great example of what LAPD officers do sometimes. Also, unfortunately, on the 28th of November, we had an officer-involved shooting resulting in a fatality at about 1300 hours at the 2700 block of Maple in Newton Street. These are the facts as we know them now, based primarily on officer statements and evidence recovered at scene. In this particular officer-involved shooting, Metropolitan Division officers were involved, so they have not yet been equipped with body-worn cameras, and they do not have in-car video, so neither of those were available. Officers were in full uniform in their Metropolitan Division police car. They observed a suspect that they believed to be involved in a burglary from motor vehicle or possibly involved. They made a U-turn to detain him. His name was Pablo Cartagena. When the officers made the U-turn, he began to run. The officers exited their vehicle, began to follow him, and as he ran, one of the officers observed him to be in possession of a handgun. The officers initially wanted to establish a perimeter for containment, but he entered the backyard of Mr. Cantinega entered the backyard of a residence, and the officers, after he entered the backyard of a residence, the officers could hear a woman screaming. They then entered the backyard, and during an attempt to apprehend the suspect armed himself with a handgun, according to the officers, and an officer-involved shooting occurred. Los Angeles Fire Department responded, as they always do, pronounced the suspect dead at scene. None of the officers were injured. There was a handgun recovered at scene, and forced investigation detectives responded and are investigating the officer-involved shooting. On to crime. I'll try to be quick. We're at 3.8% increase in homicides so far year to date. This is as of 12/3. Total rapes are down 4.7%. Robberies are up 12.7%. Aggravated assaults are up 10.9%. Gives us a total violent crime picture of a positive 10.3%. We are hoping to be able to get below 10% into single digits by the end of the year. Property crime, burglaries are down, motor vehicle thefts are up, burglary theft from vehicles are up, and personal theft from individuals or locations is down. Total property crime is at a 4.2% increase, so that gives us a total Part 1 crime increase of 5.5%. Gang crime is up 4.3%. Victims shot in the city are up 4.9%. categorical use of force are down from their 4-year average, about 3.8%, and officer-involved shootings are down from their 4-year average, about 6%. Traffic collisions citywide are up 7%. DUI-related, driving under influence-related, are down 3.1%. Hit and runs are up 3.2%. Motor vehicle versus pedestrians are down 3.3%, and bicycle involved are down 16.2%. We've got 9,868 sworn personnel on payroll. We have 2,762 civilian personnel. We just had a cadet graduation this past Saturday, where 540 cadets graduated, and that brings the strength of our cadet program to 8,411. We have just over 400 reserves and under 300 specialists and 58 chaplains, and that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have 2 comment cards. We have Prentice Jenkins and Ted Hayes.
Prentice Jenkins, Peace Between Residents and Police, City Life newsletter, publisher. I know I look like I dress like a 1960s union boss today. That's just how it happened. It got cold, folks. Couldn't wear that little jacket today. Chief, I'm impressed with the level of police presence today based on that threat we had. It was a quick threat. We only heard about it yesterday. You deserve a lot of credit for it, and Chief McConnell, too. I was at the Union Station, and I saw the presence. And they think they're soft targets here. They got another thought coming. So kudos to that. And the 2 officers that are running, that ran to Sacramento in full gear, I mean, I couldn't run down the block in just this. And they ran in full gear. That's truly impressive. And they ran in those shoes, too. I can't believe they're still walking, but it's kudos to them, too, and I hope they raised a lot of money. I'd like to say that I'm truly impressed with President Johnson, Vice President Soboroff, on the de-escalation. I've seen it all over the city, de-escalation, fight starting. Police show up, you think somebody's going to get hit in the head or tossed down, and the cops talk them out of it. It's like it's a new city now. They're talking people out of fighting one another, and they're not handcuffing. They're like, the police are like referees now, and de-escalation is working, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Two cliches. Out of the shadows, and what did they know and when did they know it? Illegals are told they will not be dealt with on their illegal status because we'd like them to come forward as a victim or a witness to a crime without any fear or apprehension from the police department. So what happens when you come to the police department to point out that commissioners are committing a crime? These are not dumb flatfoots anymore. These are intelligent, studious people. And when we say they're a violation of Brown Act, some of these cops look up this damn Brown Act and find out that any violation on the part of these commissioners is a misdemeanor. It's a crime. And so when they violate the Brown Act, and a citizen says you're violating the Brown Act, you're committing a crime, why should the citizen be handcuffed and taken to jail? So you can't come out of the shadows as a citizen because you will be arrested and drug out and taken to jail because you point out the crime is right here. The other thing is, when did they know it? And when did they know it? When did the chiefs who sit here know that these commissioners were committing crimes because they do not let you speak on items on the agenda. They talk about things that are not on the agenda, and those things are crimes under the Brown Act. They cannot discuss anything that's not on the agenda, but they do it, but they won't allow the public to do it. When the public makes an attempt to respond to what they have to say, and there are three of them, a majority of the board, three of them, the citizen is arrested and taken to jail. Think
There are no
about
other
Baca. Think about Baca.
Thank you for your comment.
No other comment cards on this item. We're now on item number 4, public comment period. We have 5 cards. We have Prentice Jenkins, Mike Jenkins, Walter Bechter.
Prentice Jenkins, Peace Between Residents and Police, published the City Life newsletter. I'd just like to say that Peace Between Residents and Police, by GoFundMe page, is going slow. When I created that free computer training program, it took me 4 months to find a corporation that would actually donate computers. I was on the phone 5 days a week, about 5-6 hours a day, calling the book of lists. It's got 1,000 of the largest corporations in Los Angeles, 5 days a week. 4 months later, I called. No, we don't have anything. Don't call here again. Sorry, we'd like to help. And then one day someone said, yeah, we got these computers that we're not using. Come and get them. Wow. Just like that. So these sort of things go slow, folks. But they only go slow if you don't have any help. Chief, I'm calling on you to get your 9,000 officers to help with the funding of Peace Between Residents and Police. Everybody donate $20 to the GoFundMe page. Just go to Peace Between Residents and Police, and you'll find it there. $20. What's the worst you could lose? And what's the best that can happen? That's the first thing you should ask yourself. But without the police help, I'm from the community. I told you I'd start it. But without the help of the police, nothing's going to happen. Because this is about not just the community, this is about the police, the community and the police. If you really want to get something done, I suggest you dig in your wallets and in your purses. Put $20 in there and see what happens. I'll get it done, but I need your help. Because without your help, nothing's going to happen. But I'll keep dialing, just like I did 10 years ago.
Mike Jenkins.
Yeah, this is addressed to Mr. Soboroff and Mr. Johnson. Since Mr. Tafank last year and the year before refused to have a meeting with me, I got 3 complaints concerning the so-called noise enforcement section. There's been no action or service, so I'd like to have a meeting with either one of you two because nothing has happened, and I got 4 so-called employees that are worthless and useless. They haven't done anything. So 2 of my complaints are at 2 construction sites, and they're major. They keep violating the building and safety construction site notice before and after hours. And then one's a belligerent bar that's playing well, their background music, it's the bass. It's not the treble so much, it's the bass. I live 2 floors above in my building, and they need to turn that down, but they're not doing it. It's just rattling the building. It's not the live music either. So I need to talk to either one of you, have an appointment, or at least at minimum have an aide, so you can talk with me about this, because I'm paying rent at my hotel, and I'm not putting up with this. I'm not paying for abuse, and nobody, the so-called manager of my building is lazy and shiftless. And these cops, whenever few times they show up, they give tickets, but that doesn't mean anything. That's a business expense that that these three troublemaker sites, they just write off. You know, they just, but they're not going to do anything until some enforcement agency makes them do it. And I just can't, I've been through this for years, 3 years, and I got to put my foot down and nip it in the bud. So I'd like to get an answer from either one of you so I can have a meeting or an aide to
Chief,
a
can you
talk.
have one of your officers speak to him about who would be the proper person for him?
Mr. President, if I may, this falls within the commission responsibility.
Oh, it does.
We have complaints active that we are working with Mr. Jenkins. If he has any questions today, he can see Lieutenant Chris Waters in the back by that room back there, Mr.
Yeah,
Jenkins.
well, she's one that I made a complaint
I
to.
know,
She
sir, but you can
refused to
speak,
talk
you
with me
can speak
either.
to Lieutenant Waters, Mr. Jenkins. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, but nothing has happened. That's my point. So, she's going, as long as she's not going to be belligerent again and hang up on me, you know.
There's no phone here, sir, so please go talk to her.
Well, I'll try that. I'll attempt anyway. I'm looking at
we have any other
the president and vice
cards?
president.
We
so
have
I made my complaint.
Walter Becker, followed by Mr. Juarez and Ted Hayes.
Good morning.
Chief.
I'd like to make a comment about an article that was printed last week in the Downtown News about fallen officers. My grandfather, Captain Walter J. Bechtel, was captain of the Sheriff's Department in downtown Los Angeles during the 1940s. He was murdered until he was murdered in 1950. Well, he was sheriff, but his uncle, Leo Vincent Butler, was the police commissioner under Fletcher Boron. And in this article, it mentions how you care about the fallen officers and their families. I don't find that to be the case at all. I've called several times about a person who continually and recidivistically is blaring his music and disturbing the peace in the place that I live, and this is just one incident, and the officers refused to so much as even give him a citation. If they would give him a citation, I can get his ID and I can file a restraining order. I don't know that, I can't even get the guy's name, and I don't really understand how you say that you concern yourself about fallen officers and their families, but what you're doing is you're using us as some kind of a political appeasement to let the people out here who are angry about you about other things that are happening, to let them know that, well, we even mistreat our own people here. I really don't understand it. And this is just this one incident, but this is going on, and I would like to say that please don't politicize your jobs. Just put your blinders on and do the job instead of trying to appease one ethnic group over another. You're going the wrong direction there.
Branton. The day they present Mr. Branton, he say, I want to start with the gang member, and I say, you better start with your own gang, you got it right there. One day I say, please, Yankee, go home, don't come back no more. The chief answered me, I don't want to stay too long. So let's remember January 15, 2014 year, this is what I say to Chief. Chief, hello down with the homeless downtown because their lives are very, very sad. You are sending the police officer, cobbler killer to chasing them, and you are broken the Constitution of the United States of America because they are human beings. Yeah. 3 times probably brutal to me, but they can stop me. They want to stop me, they gotta kill me. They want to kill me, they gotta looking for me over there in Tijuana with that lot of young ladies around me. No justice, no peace. Police, Los Angeles, no good. All right.
Ted Hayes, please.
I complain about the incomprehensibility of this document. And I was concerned about 3 photographs. The first photograph is a police vehicle, full page, bullet holes in the windshield. Another page, bullet holes from the inside police vehicle. Another page, police bullet holes, a 5-inch splatter. I was directed to speak to an officer about this. The officer called me and said, what are you talking about? I said, what? She said, I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Hayes. I said, why don't you go to the person who directed me and you to get together and talk about it and ask that person what I'm talking about. Haven't heard from the officer since, okay? Still want to know what these photographs represent. Still want to know why we got grays and dark grays and light grays. And well, I want to know. I want to know who's responsible for this incomprehensible opacity. It's not transparent, folks. Not at all. Can't understand it. But that is what the police department does. Like the officer calling me, what are you talking about? Why not talk to Mr. T-Fac about that? He knows. I want to know who put this together and who approved it. Somebody with a star or a bar approved this. Someone with a star or a bar directed it be laid out and done the way it's done. A fish rots from the head, then goes down. So if the department has got problems, it all begins at the top with this kind of thing. This kind of use of force, you review executive summary. Incomprehensible, completely opaque. Can't see through it, can't realize what it means. I still want to know who did it.
We have no other comment cards on this item. We're now on item number 5, and we do have one comment card from Mr. Ted Hayes on 5A1.
This is called a chokehold. I can't breathe, I can't breathe. We saw it on TV. A large black man, New York City. I can't breathe. So we outlawed the chokehold. But here, in the course of events, chokehold is being utilized, and there are 4 officers present. We'll never know as the public what actually happened because it's going to be confidential. But we have to ask ourselves, how could there be 4 officers available? You saw how they carried me out of here. So they can take care of one human being. Why would they have to utilize a chokehold on anyone, which can be deadly, has always been known to be deadly? In a recent event in New York City, I can't breathe, and the guy died. So once you get the information on this chokehold, reviewed a number of times in custody, deaths have taken place because suspects, inmates, were being taken down with a chokehold. The sheriff had a very unique way of doing it, particularly inside the jail. They would take a bath towel and wrap it around the inmate's neck and begin to twist it until it tightened and tightened until the veins were compressed and the person passed out. I've seen this happen. And inmates were dying. One chief of police said, because of the number of blacks who had died in the chokehold, that black people are not normal. They die when you choke them. So we're very sensitive to the chokehold, black people are, because so many of us have perished in the hands of police with a chokehold. But somehow there's an incident and the police resort to a chokehold.
We have no other public comment cards. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers 5A1, 2, and 3 in accordance with Government Code 54957. The Board of Police Commissioners has concluded its work in closed session. We are back in open session. In closed session, item number 5A1 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. In closed session, item number 5A2 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were adopted by a vote of 3-1. And in closed session, item number 5A3 was discussed and the chief's recommendations were unanimously adopted. Mr. President, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shannon Lamert Park. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rockefeller Center here in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. Our Today Show studio, the window on the world. I'm Al Roker, and each morning I try to tell people what to expect for the rest of their day. Every weekday, I forecast the weather outside our NBC studios in the elements. This way, not only do I get to meet the